meeting Chris Sky. Chris Sky is an activist from Canada, and I'd say he's probably been the lead activist that I have followed on the anti-COVID movement, the anti-vaccine movement. He has predicted everything that's happened, and he has faced an onslaught of lawfare, police persecution, of targeting. I've admired him because he's fearless, yeah? So I'm looking forward to sitting down and speaking with him, asking him some personal questions about his experiences, and find out more about the man who has sprung up on headlines across the world, yeah? He seems like a good character. Let's see what he's got to say. Right, Chris, pleasure to meet you, man.
Pleasure, brother.
Pleasure to meet you. We're in London.
Yes, yeah.
We're actually in the Churchill room. Is this the Churchill room? I think it's the Churchill room. But we're in London. You were visiting for a demonstration yesterday?
Yeah, well, we did a demonstration yesterday. We actually did a music video and a song the day before. That was just kind of on the cuff. We weren't planning that. We did a private event the night of. We're trying to do as much stuff everywhere we can as possible, because every time we go somewhere, it's about spreading awareness, getting our message out, and trying to really unite people across the world.
Is this your first time in London?
No, I've been coming here since I was probably 19 years old.
Okay.
I haven't come since before the pandemic. The last place I went during the pandemic, we were away for my wife's birthday in early 2020. We were in Italy, we were in Netherlands, and we were in France. And those are the last places I traveled since we got back to Canada. And then we couldn't leave again because they put the vaccine mandates in for travel, even for Canadian citizens. We literally couldn't leave the country because the US had the vaccine mandate in, whether you drive in or fly in.
Yep.
And we had a vaccine mandate in place for if you tried to go out on an airplane, a boat, or anything. So anybody who wasn't jabbed or didn't have an exemption, and we had exemptions, but I didn't really want to test them at the border, was literally a prisoner in Canada.
Unless you walked in.
Even if you walked...
As a migrant.
Oh yeah. No, if you were coming, if you were being brought in, then okay. And even if you were coming from Ukraine, they have a special program now. If you classify as a refugee from Ukraine, you don't have to be vaccinated.
But everyone else does.
But a Canadian citizen would have to be at that point. It was insane.
And people couldn't leave the country even to visit family?
You couldn't leave, no. They were even trying to put barriers between the provinces, which are like the different states, and trying to stop people from even privately driving between province and province. And they did it at one point, and then they tried to do it again, and they were going to do it with the vaccine passport system, but it only worked out like working in the very far east of Canada. They called it the maritime bubble. So if you were trying to go into Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, or Newfoundland, you have to be a citizen of those areas, or you have to be vaccinated, and you have to apply in person for a special travel pass. Literally straight out of Nazi Germany. They had checkpoints. So you wanted to drive in, first you have to show your vaccine passport, then you have to show your travel pass papers that you have to get online like 5 days in advance, and then they could decide if they wanted to let you in or not.
See, to us here, we had 3 months of this, really, what you're talking about. 3 months of lockdown, hard lockdown. But we've got nothing here now, really.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No
mask mandates. Nothing. Is there still mask mandates in Canada?
There's still mask mandates in Canada on public transit, any interprovincial or international flights, buses, trains, boats. So we were in the airport in Montreal. They tell you there's no mask mandates in the airport. So, and we have mask exemptions anyway. So everyone walks into the airport without a mask. Then you get to the security checkpoint, and they put a sign up saying you have to wear a mask just through the security checkpoint. They have, after everybody walks in there without a mask. So of course they'll sell you a mask for $3. So now they're making $3 a person off 1,000 people. I was already in disguise trying to go through security. I literally wrapped the scarf around, I had a hoodie on, pulled really tight, you could barely see my eyeballs. And then they tell us to buy a mask to go through security. I was like, I'm not buying a fucking mask. But then I bought the mask, I had it in my hand, just so I could walk it through security, and the friggin' guard recognized me right away. He's like, I know you, I follow you. And then he started making a scene in the airport, so I just told him to be quiet. And he was like, don't worry, you don't have to wear the mask, just hold it. So we walked through security, and when we got to the part where you gotta put your bags up, we ran into a really mean girl, and she started giving him a hard time, my boy Dave.
Yep.
And he, let's just say she thought he called her a bitch. So she called all security, and they were trying to stop us from getting on the plane to come here. But we made it through security, took off all my stuff, and everyone started seeing this.
I think the first time I saw you was in an airport.
That was,
you were coming out, you were very opinionated. And what was happening?
That's because I was coming back from Turkey, and that was the same day that they declared that not only Canadian citizens need to take a test before they can get on the plane to come home. When they land, they need to take another test after waiting in line for all these hours, and then they need to go check themselves into a hotel quarantine. Literally, this is the process. You take a test, get on the plane, get off the plane, stand in line for hours, take another test, then get in a line, go on a bus, like a prison bus, get taken to a hotel where you're not allowed to leave your room. They put you in a room by yourself. Prison. There's literally not allowed to leave for any reason. They deliver you 3 meals a day to your door that you're allowed to get. And you have to wait there until your negative COVID test comes back, and then you can go home. And you have to pay $1,000 a night to be there. So it was their way of trying to punish anybody who wanted to travel.
No one would travel. That's their objective was to stop people.
Their objective was to completely stop people from travel and completely terrify people into submission. So then I said, and I knew that this was 100% against our law, 100% against our rights, and even with their emergency act, they couldn't fly. So I came back from Turkey the very same day where they were supposed to implement it, and I literally made an instructional video. I tried to do it live, but they blocked me from going live. Even yesterday, they blocked me from going live. And I walked through the airport, showed everybody you didn't need to wear a mask. They said you didn't need to take their test, and you definitely didn't need to stand in line for their quarantine. And all they can do is give you these fake fines that don't go anywhere in court when you fight them and walk you out. And now they even have that ArriveCan app, and everybody's supposed to download this on their phone. So now it can track you. You're supposed to give them your phone number and your address when you land with this ArriveCan. So
when you say supposed to.
Well, because if you're a non-citizen, they won't let you on the airplane. Okay. If you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, they'll lie to you and tell you that they won't let you on the airplane. But if you bring up the government website of the ArriveCan, it says in big bold letters, Canadian citizens or permanent residents can't be denied boarding, can't be denied entry if they don't do the ArriveCan.
They just scare you into doing it.
Exactly. All you need to do as a Canadian citizen is you go there, show a passport. Your passport's your identity. Your identity is your name and your birthday. It doesn't have to give an address. It doesn't have to give a phone number. They don't need to know where you're going or where you are, and they don't need to have a way to contact you. They've been using this lie about the pandemic to get everybody, not only to give them that information, but to download it in an app that can track them. So now if they do leave their house, they know right away and they'll call you or they'll go to your house. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I told everybody, you don't need to do that either. So now, thanks to that video that went friggin' viral,
I remember it.
Over 40% of Canadians that are coming back are now saying no to the ArriveCan and all the other stuff. So they're so flooded with these fines and they're so flooded with all this non-compliance that it's finally starting to go away. But now they're trying to bring everything back. That's why we're going on tour. Because already in Canada, they started talking about, everybody knows that the jab, the experimental gene therapy injection that they're calling a vaccine so they don't get liability from it, doesn't work. Everybody knows it made people sick.
Where you on that? When you're on that, it doesn't work. Let me show you another video.
No problem.
This was another one that went seriously viral from yourself. Just get it up, hold on. And it was another one where I've got another message, man. You basically predicted everything.
Yeah, that's when I came. I had just come back from Dublin, September 2020.
Don't need a mask. The mask is about compliance because they know Canadians like to do what they're told. So if they tell you have to wear a mask, next they're going to tell you have to contact trace. Then they're going to tell you have to take the vaccine. And because Canadians like to do what they're told, they're hoping that everyone just complies. And then guess what, kids? Once you take your vaccine, like a dumb person that doesn't know any better, they're going to tell you, sorry, the vaccine isn't as effective as we thought it was going to be. So now you still got to wear your mask, still got to get contact trace, still have all the restrictions and social distancing, and still take your vaccine. And then what did you get out of all of this? You got a whole year where you weren't allowed to travel, your business was closed, they took your rights and freedoms, they forced a vaccine on you, and what happened? The same amount of people died. Everything is the exact same. And now they're going to put you back on lockdown and bring it all the way till July of next year so they can do the same thing again. Bring you from July, August, and September, getting you off lockdown, but just to bring you back on lockdown again. If you idiots haven't figured it out yet, it's a perpetual cycle that you never get out of. And it's a way to take your rights, your freedoms, close your business, take your wealth. Why? So you become dependent on government. Why? If you're independent, the government works for you like it's supposed to. If you depend on the government to give you a paycheck to feed your family every month because they closed your business on you, now the government doesn't work for you, the government rules you. So instead of a middle class, we have the government, upper class, and the lower class dependents that rely on the government to survive. In other words, we have a slave class. And that's what they're trying to do. It's that simple.
So in that video, this was before any mandates. This was before we knew a vaccine didn't work.
Yeah. Or it even existed.
Or even existed.
Yeah.
You called every single point. I've watched you, yes. I've sat and watched you. I love anyone who's a figure of resistance. And I've seen you and you look like you don't care. So when you're at the airport, you don't care. When you're telling them, you don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this. You called every single point.
Well, it's easy.
You knew everything that was happening.
Because we knew the end game. We knew the end game had nothing to do with COVID, nothing to do with health, nothing to do with safety. We know the end game is a technocratic control grid that involves a digital ID, a digital currency, a biometric identity system, so they can track, trace, and control everything you do from cradle to grave. Imagine for a moment that we just fast forward 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Everybody got used to the idea of being tracked, traced, jabbed, and they're on it. In Canada now, they're telling everybody they want you to take a booster every 90 days.
Fifth jab, you need fifth jab.
Yeah, fifth jab, some people.
But in this country, that's unthinkable because everyone now is like, oh, it's all nonsense.
Some people there, over there, it's like a split. You have people like me that are on jab 0 and will never be on anything but.
I want to answer that.
And then you have the other people that are on jab 5 and they can't wait for 6. They're going to take their flu shot at the same time. We had our public health official literally come out and say, I believe God gave us 2 arms for a reason. One for a COVID jab and one for a flu shot. It's literally like a religion in Canada. Yeah, there's still people walking around wearing masks. But that's today. But it was easy to predict because we know it's really not about the mask. The mask is, like I said, a symbol of compliance to get people to give up their rights and freedoms temporarily.
To get the next generation used to being enslaved.
That's right. And if they do have that technocratic control grid, imagine we're on a no cash system where there's a digital currency where you need to prove your identity every transaction, and it's a digital currency that they control. So if you're a peasant and you have a digital wallet, you're only allowed to have so much money in that wallet. And to make sure you spend it, that money is going to expire. Now they can lock you down whenever they want. Say they do one of those lockdowns and you can't move 2 miles from your house, they say. You get in your electric car, it won't even start because they can control it. If you get on your scooter or bike and you paddle over, you get to a place that's more than 2 miles from your house. When you try to scan your digital wallet, it's not going to work. It's going to say you're out of your zone. Or if they don't want you to buy something from aisle 3, it's not going to work. You're out of it. And they're training people already. If you go to the store right now and you try to use your bank card, spend 30 quid.
Starbucks, cash only.
What? Or if they tell you there's no cash and you try to scan your card, a lot of the times now people are getting an error message that says they need to identify themselves, and it's going to send them a text message to their cell phone. They have to put in this little code to prove who they are, and then they can spend their $30 on their groceries. Why are they doing that? They want you to get used to the idea that you need to identify yourself for every transaction. So there's no more anonymity, there's no more privacy. And then if they can get you onto the digital currency and a universal basic income where they're literally loading your money for you every month, we're literally at communism, but with all the technological advancements that Stalin and Hitler wished they had. And this is literally transformed society where we are all individuals, and we all know that even the weakest individual has a little bit of power. And we all know that when a lot of individuals come together, we got a lot of power. In their new system, it eliminates that. The individual literally becomes a little blip on a screen. And they flip a switch and you're gone.
China system.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. If you want to see exactly what it looks like, go look at China right now. They got about more than 500 million people locked down with drones flying around telling them that. Yeah, right now, as we speak. They're on massive lockdown.
No one knows that, really?
No, nobody's talking about that. Massive lockdown, people sealed inside their own apartments, drones flying around. The exact message that drones were saying to people, translated from Chinese to English, was, resist your soul's desire for freedom and obey our COVID restrictions. Yeah, I'm not even kidding you. They have an app there, and it started out with, just like we had, the COVID Safe app. I don't know if you had it in UK, we had it in Canada. They tried to get people to download it.
We had some. I didn't download it.
Nobody downloaded it. Not even the quadruple jab were downloading it. I think they said less than 1% of the population did. But in China, you had no choice. And in China, it started out as an
Because you
app.
don't get your money, because you don't get your income.
You don't get anything. You won't even be able to get into your flat because you have to scan it to get in and out. And then you have to scan it if you want to use your bank card. Scan it if you want to pay for gas. Scan it if you want to go to an Uber. Scan it if you want to get into the mall. Scan it if you want to leave your vicinity because they have all these new zones. And so they started it like that. And the only way you could have a green is when you got tested. So they started forcing people to get tested more and more frequently because if it wasn't green, if you hadn't got tested in the last couple of days, it would go red and none of your stuff would work. So then when they got people used to that, they upgraded the system. Now you have to be up to date on your vaccine or it goes red.
Which in a minute, when you're travelling into countries in Europe now, you have to show you've had COVID within the last 180 days, I believe.
You can do, no, not in places like this. I didn't have to do anything.
You didn't have to do anything.
Coming to UK, no test.
I wanted to ask you that because I've seen people put online, to leave Canada, Chris Sky must be vaccinated.
No, that's complete bullshit. It depends where you were going. Up until May, you have to be vaccinated to leave Canada. That was Canadian law. But now, you don't have to be vaccinated as a Canadian citizen to leave. It depends where you're going. So if you look at the rules for Great Britain...
So things are relaxing in Canada, why?
Because of the trucker convoy. Because we fought back, and they know that
Because
we were...
resistance.
Yes, exactly. And then they literally had to use the Emergency War Measures Act against the citizens. And
It was insane.
That was completely insane. And it made Trudeau look like a dictator on the world stage. It embarrassed them. We even had people in the European Union calling to have him ousted. They gave him they basically booed him out of the friggin' parliament, in the European Parliament. He wasn't even allowed to speak. So he can't survive another one of that. So that's why they let off a little bit. But to clarify, no, you do not need to be vaccinated to leave Canada. However, it's so friggin' ridiculous. We were flying on British Airways coming here. So we were flying out of Montreal. So in our lineup, boarding the plane, we didn't need to be masked. We didn't need to be masked on the plane. We didn't need to be jabbed. And we didn't need a COVID test. Right next to us, the very next gate over, is an Air Canada flight. On all Canadian flights within Canada, you still have to be masked. So all of them are wearing masks, literally right beside us in the airport, but we didn't have to. That's Canadian. That's Canadian sense.
I got on a ferry at Portsmouth, going to Spain, and we have no masks. When I got on the ferry, so as soon as the ferry took off, it said that you need to wear masks. I didn't have a mask on. I said, I'm not wearing a mask. It said it's French rules. I said, I've just left the UK, you don't have to wear a mask. So you want me to wear a mask now? When I get to Spain, I don't need a mask. So you want me to just wear it? I said, I'm not wearing a mask because we need to go to your cabin. It's a 48-hour ferry. I didn't have a cabin. I didn't pay for the cabin because it's cheaper. So they said, we need to go to your cabin. So I don't have a cabin. We'll give you a cabin. They gave us a lovely cabin. I was like, sound. So for not wearing a mask, we've got a lovely cabin with a big bed for not wearing a mask. But the rules are insane in every country. But they're so hypocritical and so...
They're designed that way on purpose. If it made sense and you go along with it, there's nothing wrong. When it doesn't make sense...
And you're still going along with it.
Yes. And when it doesn't make sense and you go along with it, what are you doing? Every time you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, you know is wrong, you're diminishing your own self-respect. And you're making it easier for them to manipulate you the next time. That's why it started with, it's just a mask. And then the mask led to contact tracing. And then the contact tracing led to testing.
Do you think they're just pushed to see how far can we go with this?
We already know where they want to go. And that's how
Do you think they're tested? Do you think Canada's... Because Canada seems to be a test country.
Canada, Australia were the number one test countries. Australia
because Trudeau, do you think it's because Trudeau's so... Because he's their man?
It's not... Well, he's definitely the World Economic Forum's poster child.
Yeah.
And they wanted to test it in Canada because Canada has more resources virtually than any other country. So they want to... And we have a very low population. So we're a prime target for the globalists. They see so much potential for profit and it's so easy to enslave us. We're so compliant. The only thing that made us a little bit better off than Australia is that we still have our guns, even though Trudeau's been banning them arbitrarily without Parliament. They took my guns illegally. I have no criminal record. Most of my charges, all of my charges against me are false and politically motivated.
And of all your charges,
most have been thrown out already.
Let's get to before you burst on the scene, yeah. Because I've seen you. I know a lot of your views. A lot of people will, yeah. I want to know when this blew up, when it all blew up. What made you be a voice of resistance in comparison to other people? What did you do? What was you doing before this? Before Chris Sky, before COVID, who was Chris Sky before COVID? What was you doing?
I ran a company called Sky Homes. That's where the name Chris Sky comes from. It's a family business, so people have been calling me Chris Sky since I was like 15 years old. It wasn't like a name I made up for COVID or anything like that. And we're in residential, low-rise, develop, design, and build. So we do residential subdivisions, one-off, semi, singles, custom homes.
Successful.
Where do you go, right?
Yeah.
We do all right for ourselves, and I've been doing the same thing for decades. And most importantly, I've been dealing with the government since I was probably 17, 18 years old. So I know how they are. I know that they only understand two things: leverage and force.
Yeah.
And they will employ them upon you as much as you allow. Whether that's in business, whether that's in politics, whether that's in life and law. So right away when it all started, we were in Italy. We were in Italy, in Venice, for her birthday. We landed on the 27th, the last day of Carnival, and we were supposed to be there to celebrate her birthday, and that was the day they canceled Carnival for the first time ever. And all over the media, especially in the US and Canada, they were talking about Venice being the epicenter of the outbreak. People are dying left, right, and center. We were getting calls from everyone in Canada, like, scared for our lives. She's shopping, I'm in the gym, everyone's just living like normal. But then we got scared they were going to lock us into Venice, so we drove south to Florence, flew two of her friends in, one from Norway, one from from Germany, and we had the time of our lives in Florence while on the TV they're talking about this virus rampaging Italy. And then from there we went to Netherlands and France before the lockdowns had actually started, just at the beginning of March 2020. And then we got back into Canada, I believe, March 4th, 2020. So I knew already that they were overblowing it. I knew already, as usual, the mainstream media is lying and trying to hype up fear so they can manipulate people. So we tried to warn everybody that the lockdowns are going to come to Canada. People thought we were crazy. Sure enough, they locked us down March 16th. By the end of March, she had found a flyer online for a protest. Never been to a protest in my life. I'm not political. I've never voted. But to me, this had nothing to do with politics. This was about freedom. So I'm like, let's go down there and see what's up. So we went down there. It was a few hundred people just scattered around. Weird signs, weird thing, completely disheveled, disorganized. Nobody knew anybody. No one knew what was going on. So of course the mainstream media showed up to make it look like what it was. To make a mockery of it, because that's what it was. It was just people showing up, didn't know what to do. So they were filming people with weird signs, weird hair, weird clothes, trying to make us look as bad as possible. So I got pissed off, and I grabbed one of the cameras and I put it on me, and I just laid into this guy. I was pissed. And everybody around heard it, and they're like, oh wow, you sound like you should be speaking. And I was like, no, I don't want to speak. I'm like, I like my life. Our life was great. I had a great career. Our number one thing was traveling. We traveled to over 40 countries around the world. So that's what I like to do. I like to keep to myself, do my business, and just live my life. And traveling to me was my number one thing, training and traveling. So I was like, no, don't want to be the center of this. I definitely don't want to be trashing the media. I don't want the government going after my business, going after me. Pretty much everything that everybody else says when they realize they could be a target.
It's the same as me when I start my politics.
Exactly.
I wore a mask and used the name TRobinson because I had successful businesses.
Yeah.
I didn't want any problems.
There you go. You got it. And me, I was literally named after my business, so it was even worse.
Has a lot happened to your business now?
To be honest, at the beginning, we got a lot of bad press, because at the beginning when all this happened, and the reason I did speak out, the reason I ended up speaking out was because of my wife, because she was the one that said it's basically, it was my responsibility, or else everything that happened is going to be my fault. She's like, nobody else has the balls.
But that's good, because I always used to get hassled with my wife.
Well, that's the opposite.
So you can blame your wife.
Now I can blame her for everything that happened.
Done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I got plausible deniability now. So everything that happens to me, it's all your fault.
That's good. You got the support of your wife.
Yes,
that's good.
Time. So that's
most wives are saying, shut up.
Well, that's the problem.
Yes,
most wives should be telling the men to stand up. If we want to get out of this, we need to go back to reality. And what do I mean by that? Men got to protect their women got to protect their children. That's the reality. They're trying to change everything. They're trying to make us feel like, oh, the women are now the new leaders and the men need to take a back seat because, masculinity is toxic. No, they want you to be a feminine beta male so you can be controlled. They're literally telling kids they can be cats now.
You see, I interviewed a lady, Jen, who's a lesbian lady, my partner. Her daughter's got 6 friends. One of them identifies as a wolf.
There you go.
Out of the 6 friends, only one of them straight. The rest are LGBTQ+.
Yeah, see, they call and they say they're not trying to disrupt. They're not trying to corrupt the youth. But when you're encouraging a child
to be a wolf,
to identify as a non-human species, how can you say that's healthy for the child? And when I brought this up,
why would you say they do it? Because I believe they're targeting the next generation.
100%. They're targeting. They've been targeting our generation beforehand to make us weaker and more feminized. Now we're at the point where boys are growing. Before our generation that grew up, we had men that grew up into like lady boys, half men, pussies that wouldn't stand up for themselves, the soy boys, etc. Now the next generation don't even know if they're a boy or a girl or a cat. And so what do? They confuse them even more. Why? If they're confused, who becomes their number one caregiver? Who becomes their number one source of influence? The state. So now we have all these people who are wards of the state. Those are the same people that are going to wear a mask. Those are the same people that are going to take a jab. Those are the same people that are going to stand with Ukraine. Those are the same people that are going to support a universal basic income, a digital ID, and all the rest of the stuff they're pushing because they can't think for themselves.
You just spoke about the gym as well. You said because you always look healthy. Every time I see you, you look like you train. How important is that?
It's one of the most important things in my life. We train. When we're touring in Canada, sometimes we have
You've been to the gym here. I've seen you
every single day.
Every day.
Every day.
Wow.
We walk to the gym. It's like just under a mile from our place. So we get our cardio in from walking a couple miles a day, and we train every single day. I think it's super important. I don't care if you train weights. I don't care if you train martial arts. I don't care what you do. You need to do something physical that keeps you in shape. It keeps you healthy, and it keeps you with the mentality of wanting to improve, wanting to evolve. Because that's how they get you. They get you feeling like you can't get anywhere. Then they get you feeling like you don't matter. Then when you don't matter, you have no reason to stand up for yourself. You don't have the ability to stand up for yourself. You don't think you can, and you won't. You know how many people come and ask me, oh, what do you do? How do we get through this? And I literally made the campaign, just say no, because it's that easy. When they tell you to put on a mask, you say no. When they tell you to take a jab, you say no. When they tell you to close your business, you say no, etc. You know what the most common question I get is from people? How do you say no? Really?
Yeah, it's mad.
I use a perfect example. I say you're flying home and you don't want to do the ArriveCan app. And they ask you, do the ArriveCan app. You say no. They're like, oh, but what do you say? I'm like, you say no. I'm like, here, how about this for example? If you came back and they said, we're not letting you into Canada unless you let me shag your wife, what would you say? No!
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. So why can't you say that for whatever else they tell you? What? Because it sounds more official? Like, it makes no sense. People are literally brainwashed and hypnotized. And that's what I told everybody yesterday at my speech. They have the Queen passing. And I think it was very symbolic because they want you
That's
to...
one of the questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, well, they want you to believe that the Queen passing was a bigger tragedy and more important to society and the world than the millions and millions of men, women, and children that all died in the last couple of years. Due to government policies, by the way, that they created. Those policies come from the monarchy that go to the WEF, that go to the WHO, that filter down through our governments to us. Charles, the king, is the number one proponent of the World Economic Forum. Him and Klaus Schwab go back decades together. So when they're telling you they're spending all this time...
There's a big divide in the UK, mate. I'm seeing a big divide. Everyone was always loyal to the Queen.
Agreed.
All lads from our background, all lads at football, everyone always loved the Queen.
Fair enough.
I despise the King. Yeah?
Nobody likes the king. That's the unifying factor. A lot of people like the Queen. She had a great image. The Royals have the best public relations team in the entire world. They have...
But one's a paedophile.
Oh, and that's what I mean. So they're not good people. They became royals because they were better at murdering all the other nobles than the other nobles. How do you think they took over? You think they took over because they got voted in as monarchs? No. They used blood, corruption, deceit to get where they are. And that's how they hold on to power. That queen that passed away, that's lying in the streets, that we're supposed to have a 24-hour procession for to make it seem like it's so much more important. I asked everybody yesterday, how was your life changed drastically when the Queen passed away? Do you care more about the Queen than you care about your own Queen, your wife, or your own princess, your daughter? Like, would you be in the same state of mind today as when the Queen passed away as if your own flesh and blood passed away? Obviously not. But they want you to believe that you should feel like that. They want you to believe that she matters and you don't. Why? Because then when they tell you to put a mask on, you'll do it. What did the Queen say just months before she died? Oh, if you don't take a jab, you're selfish. Well, guess what? I'd rather be selfish.
The Queen said that?
Yeah, she's quoted as saying that. People that don't take the jabs are selfish.
You know what her husband said? If he was reincarnated, he'd come back as a deadly virus and wipe out half the planet.
Yeah.
For population control.
That's right. That is right.
You see, this is I think it's a bit of it's been a bit of an awakening for a lot of people. I've always been a royalist for full Queen, always. And then there's so many things that are now questioning everything.
That's right.
For many people.
Because it was great public relations.
It's a difficult thing.
It is very hard for people to come to terms with.
If you've loved something for so many years.
Exactly. Exactly. But now that she's gone and you see who she's being replaced by and you see that virtually nothing's going to change except only get worse.
It's going to get worse.
You're going to realize that all that faith that they put in there was misguided. They should have put that faith in themselves and their own family. Your responsibility is not to the Queen of England. Your responsibility is to your own family, in my opinion. Maybe that's because I'm not from England, but...
No, I think that my responsibility is to my children.
Thank you, right? I believe everybody's responsibility first is to their own family. You might respect the royal family, etc., but you shouldn't put them above your own family.
So Charles pushes, I want to get from you, because you put it in great words when I've listened to you talk about it, so people understand it. COVID is one issue. Yeah, is it one issue? Is it different to climate change?
No, it's the introduction to climate change, because this is how it works. We all know that rights and freedoms are paramount to a successful society and an evolutionary society, etc., for millions of years. That's why people literally fight and die and fight wars over preserving their rights and freedoms. So if they came and said, hey, we're going to make you give up all your rights and freedoms so we can have complete control over you, everybody would tell them to go F themselves. So they came along with COVID as a vehicle to train you to give up your rights and freedoms, to train you to believe that rights and freedoms are selfish and dangerous, and to train you to believe that cowardice and obedience is not just a right thing to do, it's actually virtue. It actually makes you a hero. And so how do they sell it? They're right. And that's a great sell, yeah. Especially for the fact that most men are cowards nowadays.
It's all for the great.
Exactly. You're saving the babies. You're saving grandma. You're not wearing the mask for you. You're wearing it for everybody else. You're doing your part. And that's how they sold it, as a temporary thing for you to give up for your health and safety and for the greater good. It's pretty hard to argue with that if that was the real reality. But now, 2 years later, that they've trained everybody like animals to have those views, they want to transition us into a climate change, because a pandemic can only last a couple of years. It's already lasted longer than most pandemics that wiped out large swaths of the population back in the day. But climate change, that can last generations. So now they want to transition.
Paid activists to making it a massive issue.
Huge issue for everything. So now they want to transition you from the idea that you needed to give up your rights and freedoms temporarily for your health and safety to now you have to give up your rights and freedoms permanently, not for your health and safety, but for the health and safety of the planet. So now human beings, human rights and human dignity is completely taken out of the equation. In fact, it's actually reversed. And now human beings are the problem. We are the new virus. We are destroying the planet, which is going to ultimately destroy us. So now we are the problem that need to be controlled. It's a full 180. And they did it on everybody, starting with the COVID thing, and now they're going to transition it. And we already see it happening hugely with climate change. That's why I'm going to the Netherlands after this.
For the farmers, yeah.
That's right.
So talk so people can understand.
Okay, so this
we go from COVID and climate change. And then food shortages, possible food shortages. What?
Not even possible. Guaranteed shortages, guaranteed massive inflation, guaranteed loss of purchasing power, all designed.
They created it.
Yes, they're basically now, because a lot of the world stood up to the COVID fiasco. We didn't just roll over and play dead and go along with it, or else you guys would be on your 5th jab too and be still wearing masks. So now they want to punish you. That's why gas is more expensive, energy is more expensive, food's more expensive. It's not by accident, it's by design. Because every time they raise those prices, every 6 months goes by, a new segment of the population can't make ends meet. And when they get enough of that segment of the population that can't make ends meet without government assistance, are they going to support a universal basic income? Of course they will. So they're doing what every tyrant in the history of humanity did. They're trying to starve you into submission. Literally, starve you into submission. And because it's not happening fast enough, because they want to collapse our economies before the US dollar will collapse, and the US dollar should have collapsed already. It's the only fiat currency in the history of humanity that's lasted more than 50 years. And the only reason it has lasted more than 50 years, especially while we have the BRICS communities, Brazil, Russia, India, China, with all their own currencies now backed by gold, is because there's massive corruption in the currency markets. And countries like China that could be blowing the whistle on this are in fact aiding and abetting the U.S. to manipulate the U.S. currency from collapse. Yeah, why? Because China has so much U.S. currency. So if they let it collapse, it'd be like cutting off their own legs. So they're doing everything they can to spend as many U.S. dollars all around the world, buying companies, buying land, buying infrastructure.
Buying half our capital.
Yeah, and half of Canada. Before the U.S. dollar collapses. And then when the U.S. dollar collapses, they're screwed. So that's why they're trying to do this to us now. And they're using the guise of climate change. And how did they do it? We see exactly what they did in the Netherlands. They already talk about CO2, so that makes each one of us as a problem, and we need to limit our carbon footprint. Even though when one of these guys gets on a private jet, it's more emissions than we'll do in our whole life from one flight. But we're the ones that are the problem. So now they've decided that nitrogen, which is 75% of our atmosphere, is the new problem, the new thing that's going to kill us all. And what is the number one source of nitrogen on the planet? No, it's our farming and agriculture industries. So now they have an excuse to destroy farming, livestock, and agriculture under the guise of saving the environment. That's what the problem is with the Netherlands right now. They signed a law that states by 2030, they need to reduce nitrogen emissions by 30%. That means no more fertilizers, no more certain farming practices that give high yields, etc. That means 30% of the food supply is going to be gone from the Netherlands within the next 7 years.
Which will do what?
Well, the Netherlands is the number one food supplier for all of Europe. That is their largest export. So not only will it absolutely devastate the economy of the Netherlands, it's going to have a domino effect around all of Europe, and every single country is going to see their version of food shortages and their version of rising prices. But it's
And they'll blame it on
and they're going to blame it on us, and they're going to
Russia.
yeah, that's what they will blame it on. Exactly, they'll blame it on Russia. That's why they're having the war in Russia. They're using Russia. In the U.S., they're blaming their gas prices on Russia. In Canada, they're blaming the gas prices on Russia. It has nothing to do with that. It's all to do with what they're doing to us. And now Canada did the exact same thing as the Netherlands. Justin Trudeau is passing the same nitrogen emissions laws, and that's why we are showing solidarity between our truckers, farmers, and ranchers and the truckers, farmers, ranchers from the Netherlands, because we are only a few months behind where they are. And Canada even took it one step further. They are now using eminent domain under the guise
You've set
of
up a climate change bureau that's going to have interrogation rooms.
It's called the Environmental Center for Climate Change, the
Plans for
ECCC. It's a brand new, basically militarized police force, armed with police powers, arrest powers. They're building their own fortress in Saskatchewan right now. It has its own jails, its own armory, its own interrogation rooms, and these are the guys that are supposed to go to the farmers, the oil guys, the mining guys, and impose Trudeau's new environmental regulations at the barrel of a gun. And what do I mean by that? Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, our deputy prime minister, were just in Alberta a couple of weeks ago. Alberta is like the oil-rich part of Canada. That's where a lot of our oil and gas comes from. There's a protected area in central Alberta that allows caribou to migrate back and forth. It's an essential thing that they require because
that allows what to migrate back and forth?
Caribou. It's like a deer.
Okay.
Yeah, or elk, similar. So this is a protected area, a little belt. All around that is some of the most oil, mineral, and farming-rich lands in all of Canada. So the government quietly went into Alberta the other day, didn't even say why they were there, and filed a thing to expand that protected area by over 300%. So under the guise of protecting these caribou, they literally just stole billions and billions of dollars of oil fields, mining, and farming from private Canadian citizens. So now this is a huge game changer because it didn't actually get passed yet. They're intending to do this. So this is a way that we can finally unite the people together, because up until now, these ultra high net worth individuals, these generational wealth families, they were sitting on the sidelines and they're like, oh, who cares about these peasants? They're going to get killed. They're going to lose out. We have all this money. We're going to be fine. But now that the poor people are already under heel, now the government is specifically targeting these individual high net worth people. And they're even targeting the farmers. We have
They're going to take their farms in Holland.
They want to take the farms, not just in Holland, they want to take the farms everywhere.
They're offering them £100,000 to go with that.
Over here in the UK, right here, yeah, you're right.
We'll have your land.
There's a government website that anybody can go to right now.
Communism.
You can fill out a form as a farmer. They call it a severance and retirement package, and they're going to pay you money to retire from farming.
So they can seize the land.
That's right. In the United States and North America, Bill Gates is just going up and buying all the farmland he can. He is now the largest farmland owner in all of North America. In London, Ontario, in my home province, they just opened the largest for human consumption cricket farm. They want everybody to start eating crickets, and it was subsidized with our tax
I've had this
dollars.
conversation with so many people. Yeah, they just seem oblivious to it. They have no idea of this.
It's all over the place. When I was at the Calgary Stampede in Alberta this summer, it's a massive festival where they have the Broncos and everything, big cowboy festival. The number one thing in Alberta is our beef. Everybody loves Alberta beef, Alberta steak. You go to the Stampede for a steak sandwich. This year, you know what they had?
Crickets.
Cricket hot dogs.
So they're getting all the celebrities to push.
They're trying to tell everybody it's like a novelty, right?
Yeah,
but
it's
in
cool.
reality, they're pushing it hard. They're bringing it out to our school children. They have
cricket crisps.
cricket
Canada?
crisps, they have
that
little
Canada?
chocolate, they
Australia?
have chocolate covered crickets. They use crickets for flour. They put crickets in all types of chips and stuff now. So they use it for protein, they use it for flour, they use it for virtually everything. And it's all, first of all, nobody's supposed to eat any type of insects. They have a protein, or it's not a protein, sorry, they have a substance in them called chitin, which is not only indigestible to us, it's also toxic to us. That's why birds and other animals like that are the only ones that are supposed to eat insects. So the fact that they're going to try to make that a staple of people's diet is going to make them a whole lot sicker.
You're very knowledgeable on all of this, and that's what's hard to understand is you've just, because you just come from nowhere. So for me, I was watching, I think, who's this guy who's predicting everything, and you're continuing to predict everything, and how do we? You're censored, right?
Oh,
You're deleted from everywhere.
how?
When did that happen?
They made it national news in Canada when they deleted me off Instagram and tried to get like this huge campaign behind it.
What was you labelled as? Conspiracy theorist?
Conspiracy theorists, harmful misinformation, extremists, white supremists.
White supremacists as well?
My best friend's a Muslim imam.
Yeah.
My wife's an Asian.
Yeah.
And
None of that matters.
Yeah.
When it comes to labelling, none of that matters.
Of course, I want you to be all of the
You're
above.
still a white supremacist.
I'm out of jail right now because my friend, the Muslim imam, is the one who bailed me out.
Yeah.
But you know, because we're so. I just made a rap video with the Jamaican UK artist
In Brixton.
in Brixton a
I'll
couple
see
days ago. You know,
None
because
of them, man.
yeah, because all of that.
They just cut them out of the photos.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what they'll do. They'll just whitewash them.
You know what? I'm famous for setting up the English Defence League. We had a non-white person speak at every demonstration.
Yeah.
People don't understand it. There's always non-white people there, but they cut them out. They just search, like they search on a demonstration. They search for someone looking strange with a sign.
Yeah.
They search for an angry, bald Englishman. And then that is the image that is pushed to the public.
When we had the trucker convoy,
Yep.
we had literally
They were heroes, yeah?
They
were heroes for the world.
100%.
For the world.
100%.
I'll say
I
that.
literally cried when I spoke on stage there because there was that many people. And I asked the police how many people were there that day when I spoke.
1,000.
No, they didn't lie. They said there's over 2 million people here today.
Wow.
They literally told me. I was like,
but did the media lie? What did the media say?
The media didn't really lie either. They said
Okay.
at least 1.5 million.
They weren't able to.
They couldn't lie because there was so much drone footage and the city was just. I had never seen anything like it. I was in a stage that was surrounded 360 degrees by people as far as the eye could see in every direction. I had never experienced anything like it.
That's the front line of the battle.
It was.
The problem being, which I see now, is when you had social media, when you had it, when the truckers had it, we saw what happened. They froze their bank accounts. We saw the implementation of total communism.
Oh yeah.
We saw it. To resist in 2 years' time, when we go to the next stage of this, most of the prominent people would have been censored. All the people standing up, whereas they were losing, they weren't ready for. I think when Trump got elected, that we saw populist revolutions happening, and they just took back total control through social media.
Yeah.
How do we fight this in 2 years?
Well, that's why all these other social media platforms are popping up, like Getter. And even though they censor me off Instagram, we're on like our 25th Instagram account. We come back and we'll have 10,000 followers in a couple of weeks. And even if our account only lasts for a month, well, people always
We need to
find
migrate
us. And people always share our videos. So I can make a video, it might get seen by only 10,000 people on my brand new account, but all those people share it and it goes crazy. I've had videos that people put on. I'm not even on TikTok. I'm banned on TikTok to the point where you can't even write the hashtag Chris Sky on TikTok. And that would make you wonder, why the hell does China even know who I am, let alone want to censor me so bad? Because they're the model for the rest of the entire world.
They're all working together.
Meanwhile, a friend of mine has a fake TikTok account with about 3,000 people on it. He took one of my 40-second random video clips, posted it on there at 1 o'clock in the morning to try to beat the censors. By 6 a.m. it had over 1 million views. So when the public
still want to hear the public still want to hear it.
The
public need it.
They need it. It's the truth. It's like David Icke said, and I gave him credit for this yesterday. He's the one that taught me this. When you're speaking to people and you're telling the truth, it hits their heart chakra and it resonates, and they literally feel it. And that's why they can't help but listen. And that's why they have to try to censor people like us. They have to try to silence us because if people hear what we say, they can't argue it. How do you argue the truth with a lie? The more you try to lie, the more ridiculous you're going to look, and the more people are going to go. But at the same time, the more they try to censor us, the more people are like, why are these people censored? And that's why you can't let them cancel you. And they try in many ways. And you know probably the best way they tried to cancel me.
So you deleted from all social media?
Yeah, I'm still on Instagram because we get deleted every few hours. I'm completely banned off Twitter.
Start loading. You know, everything. This is because Telegram has a very different audience to Get has.
Yes.
So I've seen you've got a good Telegram following. The people on Get are totally different. So what I do is I just load everything to both. Every video I put on each one.
That's what I'm going to start doing.
Load of platforms.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's the most important job I was saying to Tate. The most important thing we can do is migrate people. We need, all of us have a role, which is to migrate people from Instagram, to migrate people from TikTok, from Twitter, get them onto these alternatives.
I agree 100% because there's a reason the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution is freedom of speech. There's a reason that even the police liaisons came up to me yesterday and said, we are here to ensure that you have the right of free speech because everybody deserves to be able to say what they want. There's a reason. It's because words are the most powerful weapon we have. Are we more dangerous, the two of us running around with a microphone or running around with an AK-47?
Yeah.
Obviously the microphone.
Wake the world up.
Exactly. And that's why they try so hard to censor the truth, but that's why they'll never be able to censor the truth because the more they try, the more people are going to want to hear it. So as long as people like us keep spreading the truth any way they can, that's the other thing I learned. Because the most common question I get from people who want to help, besides what can I do, and I tell them just say no and don't comply with anything, they go, yes, I'll do my part. I do that already. But how do I wake everybody else up? What is the way you wake everybody up? The problem is, everybody has a different trigger. And I learned that the other night when I went to an event by United Artists for Freedom. So we had people doing poetry, satire, telling jokes, singing songs, telling personal experiences of like vaccine injury, etc. Or just doing inspirational talking like me. What do they all have in common? They're using the spoken word as their weapon to wake people up. And every method will touch different people. Just like Getter has a different audience than Telegram. Everybody has something different that's going to wake them up. Some people, you can tell them all the statistics in the world. It's never going to hit them. Yeah. But as soon as they see their mother or father drop dead 10 days after they got their second shot, oh, now they're awake. Or as soon as that person didn't care about the mask at all, and you told them it was going to get worse if they complied, and then all of a sudden they got fired from their job because they didn't want to take the jab, and that woke them up. So there's different triggers that wake up everybody. So everybody that is trying to wake people up, you are, in my opinion, the most important people alive today. And that's why they want to try to belittle your actions. They want to try to make it feel like what you're doing doesn't matter. But if I can wake up millions of people, you can wake up millions of people. Even the most unsuccessful and inept person can wake up at least 3, 4, 5 people. So how many freedom fighters do we have? Millions. So if every single one of them did their actual part and wake up a few other people any which way they can, within a few months we'd have billions of people on our side. And now we're at the point where we can get them. Because before, our movement was capped because it was only the fighters, only the people that were willing to stand up, only the people that were ready to deal with the scrutiny of being called anti-mask or conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxer, racist, etc. But now it's getting to the point that when they come for the food supply and the average person sees their food bill after they wore their mask for the last 3 years, after they're on their jab 5 and they did everything the government asked of them, and now their food bill went from 300 pounds to 700 pounds and they can't even afford to feed themselves regardless of what they did, now they're going to realize they have no choice.
Yeah, the public are ready to listen.
That's right. Every revolution in human history starts when the people can't feed themselves. And now we're getting to that point where they're trying to force people into that situation because they think it's going to breed compliance, and the people are going to download an app and download a digital identity and get along with a universal basic income just so they won't have to wait in food lines or just so they won't have to starve. But in reality, what's probably going to happen is people are going to get really pissed off.
We hope it's going to happen.
Well, I don't hope. I don't like saying negative things. I like to will things into existence.
It's going to happen.
I say it will happen because as long as will you ever give in?
No, never.
I will.
No, never.
So as long as there's people like us that will never give in, they can never win. Just like Vietnam, just like Afghanistan. Those are countries that they should have been able to roll right over, no problem. Russia got destroyed in Afghanistan. The U.S. got destroyed in Afghanistan. And why? Because the people simply would not give up. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the weapons. All they had was the heart to keep fighting. And that's what we have. That's why we're going around the world. That's why we're really waking everybody up and letting them know that that's all you got to do.
Do you worry? Do you worry in the sense that, you see, for you to be deleted from social media, that's not just some manager in social media.
No.
There's been a big meeting. There's been a big meeting of very influential people in the world who have looked and gone, he's a problem.
Yeah.
He's waking people up. He's challenging our narrative. Yeah. So that is influential people looking, thinking, how can we stop him? So have you faced lawfare?
Oh my God, I've been arrested over 20 times in the last 24 months.
Had you been arrested anything before that?
For different offenses. I used to be wanted as a street racer when I was growing up.
What's a street racer?
Like,
right, street racer.
Yeah,
Oh.
like that kind of stuff. Not like a criminal.
No.
Yeah, I was known. Let's just say I was known to police.
So you've been arrested 20 times in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You see, that is the lawfare that people need to, because that's tiring, no?
And I've
exhausting.
I've had situations where the corruption is so bad that I've been arrested, put in jail, charged with ridiculous crimes, and then I've actually gotten bail the same day, signed by a judge, paid for by the guy that came to bail me out, agreed to by the Crown, and then because the family that was charging me was a multi-billionaire family and one of the top donors for the Liberal Party, not only did they not let me out, they arrested my wife.
You've been arrested?
No charge. Yeah, they brought her not even to
You're
jail.
in prison.
They brought her straight to prison.
Yeah.
Orange jumpsuit, strip search, the whole 9 yards. Threw her in prison for a full 3 days just so they could tell me she was in there.
Yeah.
I was in jail. I was getting bail to get out. They did, like I said, I had all the paperwork, everything paid for. They said they were coming to get me out. My lawyer was even on the phone with me. He's like, yo, you're gonna be out in an hour. Everything's fine. It's like 1 a.m. They came to get me from my cell, put the front handcuffs on me, brought me to the front so I could sign off. And at this point, I didn't even know she had been arrested yet. So then when I got to the front, instead of signing the paperwork, the bail paperwork to let me out, they just said, change of plans, you're going to prison. And they picked me up.
You know what all of this is, yeah?
Completely illegal.
The completely illegal one. But my pregnant wife was arrested.
There you go.
In front of our children. They
It's-
made her sit 6-hour interviews 3 times. Yeah? All of this is to get in your head.
100%.
To
That's
break you.
exactly what I want to get through to everybody. That they didn't do it to get to her, they wanted to break me.
They
But
tried to
arrested-
break you,
They
and that
arrested,
didn't work, so then they went for you.
exactly. Because they even...
It's infuriating.
Yeah, and when they literally threw me in a black van. I didn't know where they were bringing me. They brought me to a prison by myself. When I got into the correctional facility, I showed the correctional officers my bail papers saying that I'm not supposed to be here. They freaked out. They called my friend to come pick me up at like 5 a.m.
It's all for this, man.
When he got there, they got a phone call. And then they said, sorry, you're not getting out. And that's when they told me she was in there. So then I got thrown into the same prison facility as her. But because I'm not jabbed and because I won't take a test, they treat me like Hannibal Lecter. They'll keep me completely isolated, lock me up for 24 hours a day. In 3 days, I got out for maybe 10 minutes the entire time. They didn't let me have a shower, didn't let me go to the gym.
All the things they legally have to do.
Yep, and they even disabled the hot water in my cell, so I couldn't make coffee or even try to wash myself in the cell.
I know the purpose of this because I've gone through it. I think I've been in 10 prisons. I've been solitary confinement for 22 weeks at one time.
Oh my God.
22 weeks, then 11 weeks, then 12 weeks, just put in a room. All has to break you.
Of course.
How has it broken? At times.
Obviously not.
At times.
Truthfully, as soon as it happens to you and you see the corruption, you see what they're capable of, and you're in there, you're like, wow, that was really bad. And you do start questioning, like, what else can they do? And you do get a little worried. But then at the same time, I remember that I haven't done anything wrong. They're not going to be able to prove this in court. I know I'm going to get out. And then I started thinking of, what the fuck am I going to do to these cocksuckers when I get out?
That's me.
And
That's me. I'm getting it.
Yeah,
I'm going to push you back.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden,
This
my
doesn't
time is
work,
there.
right? Stop it. It don't work. You just make us more angry.
It's exactly what happens because I get in there. At first, obviously, as soon as you're handcuffed and you're in there and you literally lost your freedom, you have that whole traumatic experience that everybody goes through. But then once you're in there and you're stuck in there for every hour of the day, and there's nothing you can do. You can either sit there and go freaking crazy, or I can start planning my next moves. And I use it like a vacation because normally we're on the it's literally a break for me because we're literally on the move 24 hours a day. Sometimes when we have a tour across Canada, they'll book us on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we'll have up to 11 hours of driving in between each event. So we're literally going 24 hours a day. So you want to throw me in jail for 2-3 days? Fine, I'll friggin' sleep.
We're tired. Lock us up.
But they do.
We need a break, right? I'm knackered from all of this. Just stick me in a cell for a month or so.
But then they know that when you get out, they want to make it so they still want you to feel that pressure. So that's why I have so many different conditions. That's my
Pressure around the media. They use so
the media. They destroy your name in the media.
That's
in
what's
the media.
for.
I'm like the worst person.
They don't care if they can't get a charge. They
No.
want the headline.
Exactly.
Headline doesn't important.
Exactly, because they'll just say they were quoting someone else.
Yeah, that's it.
And they can get away with it.
He's this. He's
Yes,
this.
and
then whenever they mention you from then on, it's Chris Sky. Boom, boom, boom. They list all the different things.
That's right.
It's exactly the same as happened over here.
And then on top of that, they put conditions on you to try to take away your rights and freedoms, so it makes it harder for you to do what you want to do and easier for them to arrest you. Because all the charges I have are frivolous and garbage charges. But once you get out and you agree to those conditions, if you breach those conditions, now they have a real criminal
And it's a
charge
criminal
on
offence.
you.
I've done it.
Yes.
They use civil laws they've done exactly the same.
I was on
They must have a
9.
playbook.
They do have a playbook.
It's not working.
That's how I
Take it
can
up.
predict everything that happens before it happens, because they have a very, very generic playbook. But they had me on 9 separate bails. 9 separate bails, okay? And I'm not allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to fly within Canada. I wasn't even on the no-fly list, but because Canadian airlines are subsidized by the government, our RCMP, which is like the Canadian FBI, had an illegal agreement between the airlines, the government, and them, just to not let me on the planes. So I'd walk into an airport to go on a Canadian flight, and within 5 seconds I'd be facially recognition. All of a sudden I'd be surrounded by cops, and they'd be like,
You might have had it worse than me.
yeah, I think so. You know? They're like, Mr. Sky, can you come here? I'm like, you know my reservation is not under Mr. Sky, right? Like, but thanks. But and I've only found out about it because the JCCF, which is like our ACLU in the U.S., it's like it's a privately funded pro bono constitutional law firm, and they took me on for free, and they filed a freedom of information request against all these airlines, and that's how I found out that this is an illegal agreement, because I got something back from the airline's lawyer. And it was 95% redacted. It looked like the documents from Hitler
Donald
from
Trump's
World War II.
It looks like Donald Trump.
Or like the Donald Trump, yeah, or like the Mar-a-Lago document. But all you could see was that the RCMP had been collaborating with Air Canada, Swoop, WestJet, all the Canadian airlines. And that's why I wasn't allowed. When I went to British Airways, I got on no friggin' problem, except for you, Dave.
Do you think, but there's, so Canada's, you've had quite a few numerous terrorist attacks over the years.
Yeah, if you could call them that.
Do you think they're getting this sort of treatment?
No, I think we get treated worse than the terrorists. They make excuses for the terrorists for the most part. They were either mentally ill or they had another They always have to come up with something. But it's easy to call a terrorist mentally ill, because if you go and try to take a car and drive into 20 people, you're obviously not in your right mind.
What about, we're sitting here now, we won't agree on everything politically. Was you told not to talk to me?
Oh, hell yeah! Are you kidding me?
You know that we have a thing in the UK called Marmite. It's like a little pot of jam, and people and the famous advert is people love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
My friends call me Marmite. Right? People either want to hug me or they want to punch me.
Yeah.
that's how it goes. But with yourself, so how many? Because I saw your video. The people who were telling you not to talk to me, were they taking part in a freedom protest?
Some of them were, some of them weren't. Everybody has different reasons for hating you. Just like they all have different reasons for hating me. I just think it's hilarious.
And I find it insane, because say some of the people, I looked yesterday that you was at a rally and Piers Corbyn was talking there. Yeah? Now I think it's important that I would sit down and talk to anyone.
Yes.
I've done that for 15 years. Since the start of the English Defence League, I've sat with Imam after Imam after Muslim after Muslim. I may disagree fundamentally with their core beliefs, but we need to have a conversation. And the more we have a conversation, the closer we get to some sort of solution. Yeah? So I saw it because Piers Corbyn, who was a revolutionary socialist, Marxist, but some of these people don't think that I should be spoken to. So they want, we're pro freedom.
No,
you don't need. You should
not
have,
really. Anybody on the left isn't pro freedom. They're pro their viewpoint.
Their freedom.
That's it. Their freedom. They want to be free to identify as a. For
I'm
instance,
pro their freedom.
On Google, I made a Google account and it asked me what gender I identified as. And it didn't just have male or female or even other attached. It just had a blank box where you could write whatever you wanted.
Oh, nice.
So I wanted to push the limits.
Yeah, what do you
so
mean?
I identified as an Apache attack helicopter. Perfectly okay. I'm definitely not mentally ill for thinking. And then somebody said to me that I'm transphobic for talking about things like this. I go, what does transphobic have to do with identifying as something that's not even a human being? Like, I identified as an inanimate object, and that was supposed to be acceptable.
I see a funny video of someone walking in there
with the camera. I identify as a camera, and the girl looks at him.
Okay then.
I saw.
It's a great video.
I saw a guy. He has to be like a 5'9" white guy, and he went to a university just to show you how brainwashed students were. And he went to these just random kids, girls and boys, probably age 18, 20 something, and he's like, my name is whatever. I identify as a 6 foot tall Chinese woman. What do you have to say about that? And 9 out of 10 of them are like, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. He's like, but don't you think it's weird that I'm actually a 5'9" white male? Like, oh no, you can be whatever you want. No, you can't. So let's
find that terrifying though.
Yeah, but let's just indulge this for a second. So let's go to the mental institution and find the guy who's sure that he's Napoleon reincarnated. Should we tell this guy that he's really Napoleon? Should we give him a little hat, a little outfit, and let him go and try to conquer the world?
We're celebrating now, though.
Yeah, but what about me if I had an imaginary friend named Daryl right here? Would you interview Daryl for me? Are you a bigot because you won't talk to Daryl? What?
I'm a bigot.
Oh, Daryl, you don't like Tommy? You don't want to talk to him? Oh, he's one of those people that told me not to talk to you. I'm sorry. But no, we should indulge this because, we're bigots. We're inciting violence against these people if we don't.
Our speech
if we don't go along with it. It's like they told the senator, an actual senator in the United States, do you believe that men can have babies? He's like, no, I do not believe men can have babies. With as straight a face as possible. And the girl looks at, how dare you incite
like a
violence against the trans community. I'm sorry, you're not having a baby. You don't need a tampon unless you want to stick it up your ass. Like, it's that simple. It's really that simple. And until people start rejecting this
crazy,
that's what this whole world,
insanity.
Every single thing they're telling us in the world now is literally inverted truth.
And if you're letting them teach your children this,
then you deserve it.
What happened? America's under attack.
Canada's worse right now. In Canada, they just made a new law in Ontario that states your 4-year-old child can choose
without the parents' permission.
Without even the parental knowledge. And at the same school where they're allowing this, they have a trans teacher there. There was a teacher in the US that got fired for looking too sexy.
She was sexy.
She was sexy, poor girl. Like she's completely covered up, head to toe, wearing dresses down to her ankles, but because she had a small waist, big boobs, and a round butt, and it made the women jealous because every husband probably wanted to bang her when they dropped off the kids, she got fired. But in Ontario, Canada, there's a male, he's got to be a 6 foot tall male, who wears, they got to be 38 double G prosthetic breasts that stick out to literally here with huge nipples because he's not wearing a bra because he'd have to use a blanket as a bra for those tits. And then wearing little tiny booty shorts that my wife would wear to the gym. And he's teaching your child.
That's the thing, he wouldn't be teaching my child.
And then telling your child that they can choose their own gender.
Why are there 30 parents not at that school? Why are the parents not at that school? Because that he would not be teaching my child.
But guess what it started with? It's the parents' fault. Because how many of the parents, when the kid comes home wearing the mask and says, Mommy, I don't like the mask, I don't want to wear the mask hurts me. Oh, you have to do whatever the teacher tells you. So now all of a sudden, the kid realizes that the teacher is above the parent. Because if he's telling the parent, I don't want to wear the mask, and the parent's like, oh, I can't help you, you got to listen to the teacher. So now you go back into that class, and that same teacher reads you a book that says, oh, Jack wants to be Jill. And at the end of that book, a couple kids in the class say, oh, wow, that sounds like fun. Do you think you can give me some of your dresses and some fake boobs so I can walk around and you can call me Jill? And of course the school will indulge. And then 6 months later, when your child comes home dressed like that, you're like, what happened to you, Jack? He's like, oh no, I'm Jill now. And you say, excuse me? All of a sudden, social services at your house because you are now denying your child's chosen gender identity. But if your 4-year-old tells you they want to eat candy canes for breakfast every day, you're an irresponsible parent if you feed them candy canes. But if your 4-year-old child says that their sexuality is in question and they want to really be a female, you're supposed to completely indulge that because they totally know what it means.
No 4-year-old in the world would say without the influence and encouragement.
That's my point.
Do you think this is about sexualizing children?
It's not just about sexualizing children. That's part of the agenda. They're trying to normalize pedophilia because the people in power are pedophiles. And they're using...
Can we call them pedophiles? They're minor attractive people.
Ha! So,
Oh, what is going on in the world? You're
Yeah.
destroying the world.
yeah, and I don't want to punch them in the face. I just want to remove their jaw from their head.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is how they've done it. They normalized it through starting with the gay and bisexual, because what was the number one thing when they started the DSM, the psychiatric manual for every disease in mankind, all the way up until the mid-70s. Homosexuality was considered a mental disorder and a disease. Then what do? They came in with the mantra, they're born that way. So now, it's no longer an illness, it's no longer a disease, because they're born that way.
What's your view on homosexuality?
Pardon?
What's your view on homosexuality?
Homosexuality is a preference. So my wife's bisexual.
Okay.
I love that, because I like women. So if I could have my wife with another woman, so to each their own. You can't tell someone they're wrong for a sexual preference unless they want to have sex with an animal or a child, because those people can't consent. But if two adults, whatever their gender is, want to have sex, you can't really tell them you don't like that. If someone tells me they like mushrooms and I hate mushrooms, can I tell you you're wrong for the way you like mushrooms? No. So that one's kind of different.
Yeah, okay.
But that's why the born that way was easier to slip in. But now you go to the trans and the people who want to identify as anything. They were always considered a mental illness.
It is a mental illness.
And now they're considering it not, because they're saying they're born that way. And now they're saying that you are mentally ill and you are a criminal if you question these people. But how can somebody say they were born to identify as a cat or born to identify as a Chinese person when they're really a white person? No, that's completely ridiculous, and it's easy to refute that with logic and reason. If a gay guy says, I'm attracted to that guy over there and I want him to bend me over, I can't say you're mentally ill because that's what attracts you. But I can't say you're mentally ill if you say, I'm a 6'2" guy with a dick, but I believe I can get pregnant.
Yeah.
Because that's simply not true. Like, I'm sorry. So there's a fine line. But now, guess what? They're pushing the envelope for the pedophiles. Now, the minor attracted people are born that way.
Yeah.
So now that they're born that way, it's no longer a mental illness, a crime, and a sexual deviance. Now it's a sexual orientation. And now we're not supposed to be we're supposed to pity these people. We're supposed to feel sorry for them because they have to deal every day with being vilified for wanting to rape that 6-year-old child. And it's disgusting. In places like the Philippines, for instance, granted, the children mature a lot faster there. So by the time your child's 18, if they're really not married there, it's like, oh my God, what's wrong with your daughter? But their age of consent there is 12 years old. Now, okay, if a 13-year-old girl is with a 15-year-old boy, okay, it's questionable. But the fact that a 45-year-old man can legally go and have sex with a 12-year-old girl or boy, that is
in the Philippines.
That's disgusting. That's why they have sex tourism over there.
And
Because all these guys, all these pedophiles can go there and they go to these poor places, and it's like culture over there to sell these children into sex slavery. And it's not even illegal.
It's not legal in Saudi, Iran.
Yeah.
Many of these countries.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, okay, let me go back to Canada. Is Pierre the answer?
Pierre! Oh, God. Okay. If you haven't figured it out...
I've only seen...
If you guys haven't figured it out yet, that all the parties are controlled. Was there really a difference in Ontario? Ontario, my home province, is conservative. Doug Ford, strong conservative. His slogan, Ontario, open for business. How was Ontario any different than the Liberals' Canada? Every mandate in place, even harsher mandates than other provinces. They all work together. Every conservative politician voted unanimously to keep extending lockdowns, keep extending emergency orders. The only reason Polevra even came on the scene was because of the trucker convoy. As soon as the trucker convoy started gaining steam,
he comes as the vote.
Well, the old leader was, what the hell is his name? I can't even remember his stupid name.
He said he's going to ban everyone from the WEF.
Yeah, sure he was. He was on the WF website himself up until 2021. But as soon as he became the poster child for the trucker convoy, they took him off. And he only went there so he could replace the old conservative leader because he was being touted as too much like Trudeau. And then as soon as the conservatives saw that there was conservative support for the trucker convoy, which was really the freedom protest, they needed someone to do a controlled opposition. Yeah, do you even know who his wife is?
I go.
She's an aristocrat from Venezuela. She's literally like the Hillary Clinton of Venezuela. And so that's how connected he is in those scenes.
Okay, let's go back to Trudeau then. Do you think he's Castro's love child?
Ha! It's everybody talks about this and makes jokes about it, but the reality is his mom was one of the biggest whores in the history of politics and the history of our country.
Do you hear that, Justin?
Yeah, we all know your mom's a whore.
Your mum's a whore.
Your other half brother, Kyle Kemper, is the reason I wrote my book. Justin Trudeau's mom literally made headlines twice. You know why?
Go on.
The first time, she fucked, what's his name from the Rolling Stones? What's his name? No, the other one. She fucked Jagger second. That's what I was gonna get to.
Wait.
What's the other guy's name? Ringo.
Okay.
Is that his name? Fucking,
Yeah.
I don't know. Fucking. She fucked one of the Rolling Stones, and it became public knowledge, and he had to like try to stop the scandal. A few weeks later, what did she do? She goes and fucks Mick Jagger. So did she fuck Castro? Gee, I wonder. There's literally pictures of her. She's all over him. If I had pictures of me standing beside my wife, who's standing beside another man, who's touching him like this, I'd be problems.
And he looks like him.
He looks identical to him. Identical. They try to debunk this whole theory by saying that they hadn't met yet, but it's false. They were there. They were in Cuba multiple times, and they were together. So is it possible? Yes. Would it be great to make him force him to take a DNA test? That would be fantastic. But we all know he won't. Justin Trudeau is protected. He had to pay millions of dollars because he had sex with a 15-year-old. Oh, everybody doesn't talk about that. Because the substitute drama teacher got a little too close with one of his students, and they had to pay up hush money so she can't talk about it.
2 times.
Yeah. There you go.
2 separate.
His
So-
neighbour.
Yeah. Have you ever seen what his Trudeau Foundation logo is?
Go on.
It was the official logo of the pedophiles, the A with the circle around it, that literally every FBI website says this is the pedophile logo. Finally, when that came to light,
It's so in your face. They do it so in
they
your
do.
face.
They do it
They stick it in your
100%
face.
in your
Disney,
face.
everything's in your face.
What's Disney's new, Disney has the offshoot company, what is it, FX series or whatever it's called? What's their new show called?
What?
Little Demon. The main character is the Antichrist.
Yeah, everything's so in your face. Okay, let's one more. I want to. What's your view on Donald Trump?
Mixed reviews on Donald Trump. Honestly, I think he's 100 times better of a choice than Biden. I don't like that he came up with the vaccine and he was
it's
pushing the
difficult
vaccine. Everybody comes up with different
things-
rationalizations for that. I agree that politically, if he wanted to remain popular, he kind of had to pretend like he did that because 60% of the population is pro-vaccine.
Yeah.
So you kind of alienate people. But so by making
He
it
could slowly now be accepted that certain.
that's what I'm saying. By trying to make it a choice rather than a mandate, I think that would be the safest bet because there are some idiots that want the jab. No matter what people say, there's going to be those idiots that are terrified and want it, and then there's going to be people like us on the completely other end, and then there's going to be people in the middle. So if I was a politician, me personally, I would ban the jabs and tell everybody not to take them. But I wouldn't stop people from taking them if they wanted to. Hey, if you want to be an idiot, go right ahead. If I'm truly about freedom, I can't be a hypocrite and say I'm about freedom except for what I don't believe in. That's the complete opposite. So that's my one gripe with Donald Trump. He's obviously got the ability. My other gripe with these people is these billionaires. Him, Elon Musk, etc. If they gave someone like me even a few $1 million, we would have ended this a long time
I
ago.
always say that.
A long time ago.
How do you survive?
I have my company. We sell merch on tour.
Where do you get your merch from?
I make it in Canada.
So if someone wants merchandise, what I mean is where can
They blocked me from being able to sell it. They kicked me off. I had a store that was online. They took my store down. They blocked me from being able to use PayPal. I had a book. Kyle Kemper, Justin Trudeau's half brother, called me up out of the blue. I don't even know how he got my number. Same mother, of course, different father because his mom's
the whore.
The whore, of course. Sorry, but it's true. So he got me a deal to do my book and get it published on Amazon. And I thought this is friggin' hilarious because I'm going to use Jeff Bezos and Amazon as a way to friggin' distribute the number one truth book to wake everybody up. I jumped through all the hoops, did everything I was supposed to do. I was planning to launch the book in Vancouver at the start of my West Coast Canada tour. 2 days before I'm launching the book, I get arrested. and I get arrested for serious charges. Assault with deadly weapon on police officer, threatening to shoot all the premiers in Canada, completely fake.
Just to do with threatening a journalist or something.
They completely fake, trumped up charges based on somebody calling 911 and saying they had a video, a recording of me saying all this. So the cops came and grabbed me like they thought they had fucking paid her. And then when they got the information, and this guy really didn't have anything except his word, and they gave him over a year to give this so-called
That doesn't matter because the headlines are out.
Yeah, the headlines were already out, but they had to give me bail. And then the bail, my lawyer told my my Muslim imam friend, be prepared for $150,000, $200,000 bail based on these charges. And I tried to tell him, like, this is completely bullshit and fabricated, and there's no way they could charge that.
Did the Muslim pay the money?
That they made my bail $5,000 for those charges. That's how bad the evidence was. But the real reason was to try to stop me from launching my book. So that night I got out of jail. We had 50 hours worth of driving, and we had 48 hours to get there, literally. So we left right as I got out of jail, jumped in the car and started leaving. They tried calling us at 11 o'clock in the morning saying I was breaching my bail by leaving Ontario, which I was not. My bail was very explicit. I could be with my surety, or I could have my surety's permission and I could go wherever I want, basically. And he was with me. So obviously I had my permission. So they tried to get us to turn around and turn myself in and try to arrest me again. And I told them basically to go fuck themselves. Actually, that's exactly what I told them on the phone. Yeah. So then they started a manhunt for us and tried to grab us before we could get out of Ontario. So we ended up in this situation where we did like a relay race with all freedom fighters picking us up, driving us to the next car, and dropping us off. And in that 48 hours, we took 9 separate vehicles to avoid the police and get us all the way across Canada to the West Coast.
You got that.
When we arrived in British Columbia, we faced a new challenge. They had separated this province into 3 zones. North, central, and south with checkpoints. And we were in the south and had to get all the way to the north in a few hours through 3 of these illegal checkpoints that were looking specifically for us. So what do? We jumped in a fucking helicopter and we flew over them. And we flew over them and gave them the finger.
How'd you like that?
And I landed.
Yes.
And when I landed there just in time for Amazon to send me an email saying that my book is the first and the only book in the history of the world to be banned by Amazon before going on sale. Even Hitler.
They banned mine too once on sale.
They did?
They banned mine 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
It lasted a week.
Okay, so yeah, mine was the first to get banned before it even came out.
Yeah, mine got on there.
Yeah,
for a week.
And they did it on purpose because they strung me along so I wouldn't get any other publishers. But I didn't trust these, so I published it myself at the same time. So I already had a whole bunch of copies waiting for me in Vancouver after they canceled it. So I was going around selling thousands of copies just in person. I was selling it online, and then they took down my PayPal, so I couldn't sell it. So the only way we sell stuff is in person.
You can still sell it. I still sell stuff without PayPal. I'm gone off all of them. I'll talk to you after. Because your book, what's your book called?
Just Say No.
Your book details all of this story.
It's
a fascinating story.
It's the book. The book is the
for a normal guy to be thrown into the limelight like this and to just go like that, which is what you've done.
And that book is such a powerful tool because what we did is
you need to get it back.
Wakes everybody up. What we would do is give it out to people at their offices. They throw it on the table, and within a week, every single person in their office is a freedom fighter.
So you need to get it out there.
Yeah,
you need to get it back out there.
Yeah, we do.
Speak afterwards. But let me see. I had a couple of questions from people, only because I've got I ain't seen my kids in 8 days, and.
No problem. I'm all about answering questions. I don't shy away from
I had a couple of questions. That ain't nothing bad. It's something big. I don't know why this is. Carol said I just thought I'd get alive and these were a couple of questions. It's something big coming on September 24th.
This is good. I've been getting this from everywhere. Okay. This is scary because a lot of people were telling me this for a couple of weeks already. And now, think about what's happening here in London right now. The Queen died. What did that do? That brought all the world leaders from around the world here. Right now, right before that date. And in fact, they're hosting a special reception ceremony in the next couple of days. And they even kicked Kate Middleton and her husband out because they said they're not working members of the royal family. Working members are actual military.
They don't two alike.
Yes. So why are they having this big meeting of military royals with all the world leaders while the Queen died? That's one thing that's very weird and telling. Another thing is, if you check, the Pope has just issued an order to all the Vatican funds around the world.
Get the money, call the money.
Thank you.
I've seen it.
Thank you.
Why?
First time in the history of humanity that this has happened, where they said that every fund, every bank account from around the globe now has to be transferred back to the Vatican Bank before the end of this month. So I wish I could tell you. At this point, it's all speculation. Do I think they're planning for something? Probably.
They're always planning for something.
Exactly. And everyone's like, no, that's a conspiracy. Well, what do you think they do when they get world leaders from around the world into the same room?
And taking away your shit.
No, they're just all there so they can go and look at the Queen and wish her blessings.
Okay, where do you stand on the Donald? We found that already. And the last one was, where do you stand on God?
Oh, God's with us. This is Archangel Michael on me. And he's the only entity I know of that's in Judaism, Catholicism, and even Islam. Because it shows that all religions are basically crossovers of one another. And although they all have conflicting ideals, they all believe in freedom in some way, shape,
No, Islam don't.
Well, my friends do.
Your Imam does, right?
Yeah, he
Your
never
mate does.
Muslim extremists don't, and he agrees with that, and he's against that. But I've been to Turkey, I've been to Muslim countries, and there's tolerant Muslim countries, and there's intolerant.
Yeah, no, I know some great Muslims. Yeah, I've grown
Exactly.
up in Luton. Some of the best people I met growing up are Muslim.
Look, and I know some Catholics that are, how about those born again Christians that anything that you don't agree with, you're going to hell, you're a bad person. There's bad people in every religion, there's good people in every religion. To me, religion is just the way they used to divide us. I believe God is above religion, and I believe anybody who's on our side, everybody that's spreading the truth, always has God on their side. And that's the real reason that I'm not afraid. That's the real reason I have the courage to do what I do, because I believe I'm protected. I believe my voice is truth, and I believe that truth is always protected, because truth always is going to rise up, no matter what. They can kick me down, they can do all those things. In the end, everything they've ever done has always backfired on them. Even if they killed me.
Yeah, they martyr you. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You win. You see,
it'll be
it's
worse.
win anyway.
Exactly, and I don't even have to do anything anymore.
We're gonna win.
So I win one way or the other. And the best way we can take over Canada, I want this on the record because I said this before. It's not about conservatives. It's not about liberals. There's only one person, literally, who can win an election in Canada, and you know who it is? It's me. And you know how I know this for a fact? I got contacted, and the guy didn't even want to give me his name.
Are you going to stand in politics?
I hate politics. It's the last thing I'd ever want to do.
You don't have to like it,
but I did tell everybody, I did make a pledge before the entire population that I would do anything it took to stop these people, and anything it took to hold them accountable, and anything it took to make sure this never happened again. So that means I have to arbitrarily take over Canada, become the Prime Minister, change the Constitution, and put in new laws so I can finally go back on vacation with my wife. Oh, for sure. You're getting a special passport. Diplomatic. But this is why, and I people think it's a joke.
Do you trust democracy though?
I don't trust democracy at all, but I believe that.
Do you trust their democracy?
Oh hell no! But I would make it. I would win such a vast majority of the vote that they wouldn't be able to screw with it, and I can prove it. I got contacted by one of the top political strategists in North America. He wouldn't even give me his name. He was too terrified. But he said he had been working with a conglomerate of people. And they have special election software, obviously. They've had it for years. And they run, it uses algorithms, AI, Google, etc. And they run hypothetical elections. They could run The Rock against Donald Trump, etc. So they ran me in a Canadian election. And they found out that I absolutely obliterated everybody. The only one that came close was Justin Trudeau. And he didn't even come close. Nice. I won against Justin Trudeau in their theoretical election. I won the first ever super majority in Canada. And people are like, how is that possible? It's very simple. You know what the number one voting demographic in Canada and virtually every country around the world is? The people that are eligible to vote, but don't vote.
Because they know, the same here, 50%, 60% people don't vote.
Because they know that every candidate's full of crap. I've never voted in my life. Never voted in my life. Why? Because I look at candidate A, who looks like a bag of shit. I look at candidate B, who looks like a bag of shit. And they're telling me, eat bag of shit 1 or eat bag of shit 2. And the rest of the people are like, well, that second bag of shit smells a little less shitty, so I'm going to go with that. Yeah. And a smart person, the majority of the people are like, hold the shit for me, and they just won't vote. They don't want to participate. And that's why they spend billions and billions of dollars on propaganda, just to get people to vote, to get the scam to go along, because they know whoever you're voting for is controlled, and nothing's going to change. If I ran for politician, every single person, they said, not every single one, but a vast majority of the people that don't normally vote would get up off their ass and vote for me, and it would be we'd have more votes than they'd ever have in the history of any election, and I would win. Now, how to physically make that happen? The PPC party is the popular
That's why
party
that
for me.
about social media, about the ability to reach.
It's very simple. The PPC party is something that's been trying to be affiliated with the freedom movement. They've been running PPC. It's Maxime Bernier's party. Maxime Bernier was in the Conservative Party. He tried to become the leader of the Conservative Party. He failed and he lost, so he left. He started his own party called the People's Party of Canada. Registered it. He has all the people in all the ridings, so he's now a legitimate person running for prime minister, and his party is ready to go. So in the last election, they got a lot of clout because they jumped on the freedom movement. They were literally following my tour around Canada and hitting all the same cities I was hitting, trying to use the same message because they realized that the freedom movement could be transformed into a political movement. To me, that made them controlled opposition that was trying to take a genuine movement of freedom and turn it into a political movement, which is never.
And they want to take the success of your hard work.
Exactly. And they wanted to do that. In reality, they branded themselves as the party for freedom. When it came time to the election, all they could raise was like $1 million. Maxime Bernier couldn't even win his own seat twice in 2 elections. They got 0 seats, a couple percentage points in the poll. So he's basically taken the party as far as he can. If I came in there with some backers and I had a bank account that had a couple $1 million in it, and I walked up to the leaders of the PPC and said, you guys vote to make me the new leader of the PPC and a candidate for prime minister, you'll have access to this money through me to run an election campaign and get a hell of a lot more money. If they did that, I'd be the new leader of the PPC, I'd be a legitimate candidate for prime minister, and we'd be able to get millions and millions of dollars from all around Canada to support our campaign, and I would absolutely destroy every other.
That's only if the PPC, whatever, isn't controlled.
Well, they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be if I was in charge.
No, if he was in charge.
And that's the idea. And I would be the first
UKIP in the UK.
Exactly, and I would be the first candidate in the history of politics that actually would go to the 330 plus ridings and meet every individual candidate and do fundraising for each individual candidate, because we're used to that. We travel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We put 300,000 miles on a car in a year. That's our lifestyle. We've been doing it. These politicians won't do that. They'll get on a first-class plane, spend $50,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars for a flight so they can go to one of the big cities and talk to the people. No, we'll get in a car and we'll drive to every little town and make sure each and every one of those ridings gets the support they need to win. And we'll bring in more money than the other parties. And we'll steal votes from the Conservatives, steal votes from the Liberals, and we'll get all the other people that have never participated in a Canadian election to actually get off their ass and do something worthwhile. And then there's no way they can.
And then I'm allowed in.
Results.
All I care about, I'll be allowed in.
Not only will you be allowed in, we'll redo the Constitution. We'll redo that Constitution. We'll have enough support in the Senate and the House that we could do a constitutional convention and actually give Canada a real constitution. Right now we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which basically says, oh, you have rights until we say you don't. The United States has a much stronger constitution, so we could model something off of that. We could really limit the power of these people. We could really make Canada self-sufficient. There's no reason we should be spending things like $2.50 a liter for gas when we have some of the best oil refining in the entire world. We don't produce any of our gas. We mine our oil, we ship it off to the States, at a loss, they pay us less than we actually pay for it, then they refine it and sell it back to us so we can pay twice as much for gas than Americans using Canadian oil. Straight corruption. Everything they're doing is to run the country into the ground. Everything they're doing is to enrich themselves. All these so-called foreign aid packages that they send out, I want people to understand. When they say they're sending out $2 billion to Ukraine of our tax dollars, the very second that $2 billion leaves Canada, you have no way, legally or otherwise, to track even $1.
It's just money movement.
That's right, and that's why they have things called the Trudeau Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, because those billions and billions of dollars just find their way back into those, or they get into court, or they give them out as corporate contracts to their own friends' businesses to get kickbacks, etc. It's all fucking scam.
Well, it's been. I'll end it there, yeah?
No
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're a great character.
I'm glad I didn't listen to everybody and not come and talk to you.
Yeah, no. You don't listen to them.
I don't listen to anybody. I listen to this.
I know, I can see that. Mate, it's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure.
And good luck.
Thank you, man.
Good luck, man.
Do you value the content you've just watched? Do you value the work we're doing? Our team needs support. We need your help to continue bringing you this content. Everything costs money. The travel, the security, we need to be safe. We need to make sure our families are safe. If you can support our work, please log on, subscribe at Urban Scoop with a monthly donation so we know it's guaranteed each month so we can progress, get bigger and bigger and bring you better and better documentaries. Thank you.